going live with Simon, who's lost his face. Yeah, we are in Tuscany and Simon is hiding behind his hair, but I'm just gonna start because I'm not one bit irritated by that.
I'm hiding.
Oh, there he is.
I'm hiding behind the power struggle. So hey yes, everyone, welcome.
We wanted to go live yesterday, but we didn't manage because we were in the car all day long. Simon was driving many hours and we just didn't manage. So sorry for that confusion. But here we are now, as promised, and we're going to talk about this little thing that we've picked up along the way, which is what most relationships try to avoid but end up getting stuck in. So
do you know? Yeah, do you know?
Do you know what that is?
Do you know what it is? I may have already given you a hint. You can put it in the comments, because if we ask you to put it in comments and you put it in the comments, more people get to see the thing, you know?
Yeah, the algorithms of Facebook.
Don't you find that now all the time? Everyone's on the algorithms tip. So we like to just show up transparently and real and share little bits or tips or little things that we've picked up along the way and that we're still working on. And we never like to show up as, the superior, got it all resolved, solved in the bag, and we are some shiny, happy couple that never, walk around in clean clothes all day, do not fart and do not get dirty. Yeah.
Nope.
We like to be in the soil with you all, right? And sharing what we learn. And we love, like last time we did one, everyone shared lots of comments of what works for you and what doesn't. And the comments, people can then feed off that and find their own insights. And how we see it is real relationships are the way that we support each other to evolve, to rewire, to heal, and to be these new examples, these new blueprints of how we can come together and communicate, and we can be intimate, and we can show up transparently and authentically, and then we show what's possible in the world as together we co-create this new narrative, if you want to call it the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible, or just new ways of being. It doesn't matter what you term it. So we hope that you enjoy this little time with us, and happy to have you with us, whether you're on the replay or now.
So in order to know which stage we're getting stuck in, we need to know that there are a couple of stages that every relationship moves through, or hopefully every relationship moves through, but most of the time it's the second stage that we get stuck in. So in the beginning, of course, we all know this, we are all starry-eyed and happy and pink-glassed, so we look at our partners and we see them in their glory, and we see this perfect description of everything that we've ever wanted, and they come in our lives, and now finally we're going to be happy, we're going to be fulfilled, and everything is the happy ever after myth. And that, of course, as many of you must know by now, I hope you do, is a myth. And that is still the issue for most relationships, because we have this so deeply ingrained in us that we think that relationships should be this beautiful space that never has any challenge. Like once you found the one, everything is perfect. And this is basically very immature love. This is a sign of the belief of a child that believes that the parents can heal everything and give you everything that you need. But in love, in relationships, in adult relationships, we're learning to transcend that stage of getting from our parents to giving. And when we start moving into giving, something else happens. But before that happens, usually when the romantic phase ends, which is about 6 months to 5 years apparently to research, but I have to say that I experience
with 5 years, it's still romance every day.
No, I
never
experienced
a challenge.
That more relationships, specifically when you start to work on yourself earlier, that actually the romantic phase is not that long anymore. Often it's much shorter. It's like 2 or 3 months, and then you go into the muck. You go into oh shit, now all this stuff comes up because you're actually working with your mirror more consciously. So that's just my experience. But the research says 6 months to 5 years is the romantic stage. And after that, if you want it or not, your hormones are going to be gone. They're not going to give you that crazy feeling anymore. And then comes the power struggle. And the power struggle is that second stage of relating where most of us get stuck in. And when you look out there in life, most relationships are, even when they're like 40, 50, 60 years together, they're in that power struggle. Subtly, they have learned to live with it, but they're in that struggle still. And this is basically where I always say relationship is like a ship, yeah, with two people on it most of the time too, sometimes more.
This is where Darren normally gets the whiteboard out and draws some serious funky ship that doesn't really look like a ship, but I always find it quite amusing. And I always say this now because it's so amusing. But I love how she loves the whiteboard. The whiteboard of joy.
Yes, so I draw
and she's teaching me so much, just so you know, through her whiteboard. Darren teaches me everything, just so you know. I'm just hanging out here, right? Just looking like an old, whatever. Older. The
Italiano is coming into him. So
sorry, carry on.
Yes, so in that moment, we are in this relationship, we are on this ship, and we've just been sailing smoothly on the seas, like sunsets, sunrises, smooth water. We've been diving into the water. We've been enjoying ourselves totally, but all of a sudden it's just like, what if now the water starts to get a little bit choppy, and who will be the captain? Like, who's gonna have the word?
Who's the captain?
Who's the captain?
Who's the captain?
Who's the captain?
Who's the captain? Are you the captain? You think you're the captain? I'm the captain. Pirate boy.
Yeah, no, I'm the captain, not you. I'm the captain.
You're the captain?
So anyway, this question comes up, who's the captain? And
does it come up for you? Have you had this experience in your relationship where that would be great to know if you even resonate with what we're saying. You get to that point where like somebody needs to be in control, right? Somebody knows right and so on.
Yeah, do you experience that? Because we for sure experience this whenever we fall into this little stage.
Have we experienced that? I'm not sure.
Yeah. No, I'm right. No, you're right. So where all of a sudden being right becomes more important than belonging and loving the other. This is really important. This is the sort of benchmark of this stage where we are wanting to be right the whole time, and rather than just opening to love for the other. And also something else happens in this stage is that a dynamic emerges, which I didn't call it that way, but the imago therapists call it the diffuser and isolator dynamic. It's
we spoke a little bit about that on the last live.
Spoke a little bit about it, but we wanted to give a little bit more around this now. So the isolator is the one who is kind of always needing his own space or her own space. Yeah, so we have these dynamics inside of us all. We all have an isolator and we all have a fuser inside of us, but sometimes one of them is a little bit more dominant most of the time. And as always, every rock finds its swamp, every isolator finds her or his fuser. We're always attracting these opposites. We are meant to attract these opposites because we are in those, when we are in these two, let's say, expressions of being, we are needing the other in order to come back to love with each other. So we will attract this opposite. We will attract somebody who was deeply, deeply trigger our wounds. So the isolator is somebody who needs space. The fuser is somebody who wants the other, who needs to merge, who needs to fuse.
No,
it's like,
no,
stay with me.
No, I need to space.
No, you don't. I need you.
For one more day.
No, stay with me.
On the ship. Gets rocky.
Yeah, it gets rocky in that dynamic. We're starting to really, really, really create like almost like a tsunami or a vortex of energy, because he, in this case, often Simon is more of an isolator, I'm more of a fuser. So we're creating this dynamic that can be very painful for both of us, because his withdrawal triggers my pain about being left alone. And the isolator usually has had a family or childhood issue of being absorbed by a parent, by an overbearing parent, being like maybe having to play the role of a partner when the partner wasn't there, taking care of the mother or the father because the other partner wasn't there. That can happen. and the diffuser had an issue of being abandoned. Yeah, so we all have been abandoned in some way or another. We all had experiences of feeling abandoned. Let it be even that your parents used the cry it out approach and let you sleep, let you be in your bed and cry it out, where nobody comes and you're experiencing pain and stress as a baby, but nobody comes to caress you. That's an abandonment issue. So we all, as we were young, as we were babies, we experienced these painful moments, and then we develop these these ways of dealing with the pain later on, by thinking, for example, as the diffuser, you need another in order to feel whole. So this
false belief. Ding!
Yes.
It's just like, that's the little highlight moment. Log that one down. You need the other to feel whole.
Yes. And the other one needs his space in order to feel solid and feel his own center, and because he is afraid or she is afraid that she's constantly being absorbed by somebody else and cannot be her or himself. So the other, the isolator, has that opposing dynamic, which is also very painful. And in this stage, again, you can say that this power struggle is like let's say the teenage years of a relationship. You know, what do we do in teenage years? We have to like put our elbows out. We stop giving to our parents. We see them. We don't see them as the gods anymore. We like,
who are they?
Who are these
stupid
people?
Parents
so silly,
telling me what to do all the time, thinking they know what they want about. I know everything.
They should give to me, but I want to just get away from them.
Yeah. Don't they know who I am? I'm 15. I've got pubic hairs now. My penis is still tiny, but I don't care because I'm somebody.
Yeah, so the romantic phase is kind of like growing up and being with your parents, and then the power struggle is teenage years. And in the teenage years, a lot of ruffling of feathers happens, and this is also what happens in relationship.
And it's allowed, it's a stage, right? It's the rebellious stage.
It's kind of rebellious and very, very exhausting. So most people, they sort of stop here, or they kind of get stuck in it. You either like, you have such a idea of a romantic relationship that you run to the next person and inaugurate a new cycle of relating newly, freshly, because it's so beautiful, or you you get stuck in this and you think, this is what love is about, but this is not what love is about. This is what power struggling is about. And when we know these stages, when we know that happens to us in relationship, then we can also navigate it much better. And for me, when I learned about the isolator and the diffuser, it was so amazing. It really changed something so deeply in our relationship dynamic, because as a diffuser, what happens is that if you don't know about this dynamic, what I used to do was like, I put Simon, because he's this isolator, he's this guy who's apparently so independent and who just needs his space, and he can just walk away. It doesn't really hurt him to leave me, and it doesn't really matter for him if he's not in the relationship. He can always drop it, but I cannot. So I used to put him on this pedestal and always see myself as this just weakling that can't do, that's just needy and can't just, I'm the wrong part in the relationship. I'm the
weakest link.
Yeah, the weakest link. When I realized this, we are in this dynamic, we're totally locked together, and he is just as wounded as I am. Just the expression of that wound.
I'm not sure
is
about
different.
that.
Yes.
Let's go back into the drawing board to talk about that one before we go live.
So when you see, even here, you can see it. Yeah, that the isolator doesn't like to admit that, because it keeps.
What do you mean?
It keeps the isolating part keeps its power by isolating itself, and the diffuser keeps its power by trying to merge. So it was really beautiful when I realized this for me, because I could for all of a sudden transcend easier when I had this feeling coming up. Oh no, I just need Simon to be here, because if he's not here, I'm gonna die. I'm literally gonna die. And he feels like if I'm gonna hug her, I'm literally gonna die now. Yes, it's the most horrible thing to do to the person that you love. An isolator just can't do that in a moment of trigger, and a diffuser can't give space in a moment of trigger.
But if you know that you're playing out these roles, this is the difference. This is why we're sharing this with you.
Exactly.
Is it one of the greatest things that we find relationship does for us is gives us an opportunity to highlight the behaviors and the actions that play out when we're in that disconnected aspect of ourselves. So as many of you watching this, you know that there's many different aspects of the self, right? We play out different roles, different personas on a regular basis. You know, we have the ego, we have the, you know, the small self, the big self, you know, the super consciousness. We have all these different fragmented pieces of the self that make up the whole. And what we love to observe in relating, not just intimate relating, or, well, all relating is intimate relating, but in terms of in your sexual partner, whether it be monogamy or whether you're in polyamorous or whatever type of relationship, but where sex is getting involved and you're sharing, as Dara likes to say, liquids. And, you know, when you're sharing liquids, you start to change another layer of the way that you act with people.
Because liquids are like glue.
Yeah.
So you're gluing yourself together with that person that you're intimately connecting and exchanging liquids, from fluids from the mouth to sexual glands, sexual liquids,
skin, sweat, whatever, you know,
yeah,
all of these different ways of sharing. Yeah. And so what we like to highlight is that when we're out of that sense of self-love, wholeness, awareness, when we out of those truer, let's say, states of being and seeing the bigger picture of everything that's playing out, we fall into what I like to sometimes call them as unconscious behaviors. So like what we're describing today, or the wounding of what I sometimes call the pain body, or the wounded tenderness, and we trigger these deeper wounds within us. And then what happens, we start to play out those wounds without realizing that, oh, actually it's a gift that we're playing, these wounds have been triggered, because now I'm getting an opportunity to heal them.
To feel them and to heal
them. So when we get the opportunity to feel them and heal them, then we really are moving from me to we, and we're moving out of the idea that there's a captain. So the only captain, which I don't think Dara said earlier, but, you know, this idea of I'm the captain, you're the captain. The only captain is love, right? There's only one captain of the ship, right? So let that sink. The captain of the ship is love. There's a beautiful book out there called In the Meantime by Ilvania Vincent. And she talks about uses the house as an analogy of the journey of self-love. Now, for me, every single experience is an opportunity to open as love. And that means to look at the blocks, the barriers, the false beliefs, the lies, the deceit, the conditioning, the programs that are telling me everything other than I am wonder, I am whole, I am kind, I am complete, I am already it. The race is over, as I love to say, right? It's done. So when we come into this relating, and there was a post we put up recently, we put up a post about relationship and so on, and leaving a relationship and so on. And somebody commented in there about how, you know, you are love, and like that if you're in love, you don't even need relationship and some other things and so on. The point is that the very essence of life, if you want to call it life, love, source, whatever you want to term it, the wonder, the mystery, is in constant relationship. We are never not in relationship. It's every single cell in our body is in relationship.
That's the illusion that we can even be independent. Actually, independence, I think, is one of the biggest lies of this culture that we're living in, because everybody's striving to be super independent, but independence doesn't exist. You cannot be independent. You cannot exist in this life without another, without nature, without the air, without the trees. We are totally and deeply interconnected with everything. So if we are anything, we are interdependent. And we need to move into that space of interdependence and recognizing that we are in deep need of another. We need this other, this
others.
As the others. We need the trees, we need the sky, we need so much reflection to see ourselves.
Well, and when we breathe in, you know, we talk about breathing in, but we're breathing in the trees, right? Our lungs are the trees as well, and the sea, right? We're connected to the interconnectedness of all. As Thich Nhat Hanh describes, it's interbeing, or Charles Eisenstein uses that term, interbeing. And a friend of mine as well, Philip Shepherd, who's written a beautiful book called A Radical Wholeness. Wholeness, really, like this is the narrative, or this, let's say, this is the, some have maybe known this for thousands of years, of course, but in terms of, let's say, the more mainstream that we're getting the gift to be able to receive, is the truth of who we are when we really do open as the wonder, open as the interconnectedness of all things. The very way that we show up and engage and listen and face ourselves changes. The way we engage with life changes. The way we see others changes. The idea of borders and racism and judgment and expectations and identity and all of that stuff, all of that starts to fall away because we have more compassion and more understanding. And when we have more understanding, we are able to be more compassionate. So when we understand ourselves more through relating, this is why sometimes people say to me, what's the point of a relationship? Or like, I don't want a relationship. Or they go into it with such a blinkered way of what the purpose of relationship is, that we don't realize that it's the very access point to dissolution. It's the access point to dissolve yourself as two into the one, into and out through death, and into who you are, deeply connected as the whole, right? It's the vessel for that. Dara helps me die, the small me die. And the more I get happy to die, the more whole I become. Yeah?
That was beautiful.
Beautifully said. Yeah, this is the beauty. And you hear it sometimes in Tantra with the idea of divine union, right? Through the breath, through the merging of two, you become one. Right? It's like you're hearing these messages in many different places. And we heard didn't we hear that little talk the other day, which sort of spoke to us again about, the thing we love to say, right? That even in the collective, the greatest distance between two people
is misunderstanding. So when we understand ourselves better, when we understand ourselves first, it's always easy to understand another. And coming back to the power struggle, getting out of the power struggle, the recipe for that is compassion. And the compassion goes to, I'm recognizing this human being right now, when there's trigger, when he's isolating, there's actually a little boy in front of me who's 6 years old and scared as hell. And can I provide him with the love that child never received and was so afraid to be taken away, its identity and its wholeness? So can I just give a bit of space? Can I just be there? Often what I need to do when he's in that space is actually just to listen. Be there, say nothing other than maybe repeat back what he's saying to me in order to get a bit more clarity, but just be there, just providing space for him, rather than taking it all personal, rather than taking it all on and thinking it's all about me and I'm not good enough, not making it mine, but actually just holding space for him and him allowing to come back to wherever he needs to get back to.
Well, and vent, right?
And vent.
I like often what happens in a lot of our not even struggle. I mean, I like to say that we've sort of become much better at realizing that this is my stuff and this is yours, but that's a practice, of course, because Dara still does take some of the stuff I experience personally, right? It's like it's all of a sudden it's about Dara's like, oh, no, I feel like it's bad, I got to fix you now. And I'm like, no, I just need to vent this shit, work it out in my crazy analytical way of trying to work it out, and then realizing I have to laugh at that because that's all stupid as well. And then I surrender, and then I soften, and then I'm like, oh, now I'm back, right? And then it's like, okay, now there's an opportunity to rise in love again. So we all have our different ways of accessing our own freedom, I feel. And there's not one way for everyone. This is what I find a lot in the self-development spiritual, especially when we're trying to make money, is that they said, this is the way, I've found the new formula, this one way. Well, that's dangerous. There's multiple ways to free ourselves from the shackles of our past. There's multiple ways to free ourselves from the confinements of our limited beliefs. Whichever way you find is yours, right? So your own.
Hopefully you're finding a couple, not
not just one.
Well.
We play with multiple different ways, different practices, different tools, different processes with each other, different communication practices, intentional dialogue, what's here now, sharing,
And we need that as well, because we often say that the pain body or the wounded tenderness, that little part in ourselves that's gets activated and triggered, that learns all these techniques with us. So sometimes we need to like kind of surprise it from the back and come with something new, because otherwise the wounds start talking to the wounds in the new kind of language that they just learned.
Yeah, what did I say last night? It was funny last night because I've been quite sick the last 3-4 days. I've had this swollen throat, a real hardcore cough. And we've been traveling and driving. It's been quite intense. Dara had it actually in the beginning of the year, and it's been quite intense. And then last night, I wasn't actually so closed, but I was feeling a bit just sick. And when I'm sick, I'm like I'm like, ugh. Dara gets sick. Maya gets sick. 6 years old. She just lays there like Zen master, dealing with it. I get sick. I'm like, ah, the world is over. I'm making sounds. Even people have said like, there's a lot of sound coming out of him. Right? It's like orgasmic sounds coming at me, but really I'm just crying for support and help.
Then he turns into a fuser,
Yeah, then I turn into a fuser. But last night I said something because, oh no, that was it. Dara's like been winding me up all day, right? Basically, it was a day of winding Simon up. Basically, she was so frustrated. She's coming onto her period, and everything was just like, and I was like, oh man. By the end of the 5-hour drive, I was like, oh, I'm done. And then we was outside upstairs in the balcony. She started saying, no, and it was going back and forth. I was like, okay, I'm not going there. This is total immature dialogue right now. We know it's immature dialogue. It's cold. I'm going to just go and lay down. So yeah, I got to lay down. And I lay down on the bed and I'm feeling like, but I'm cool as well, because we were Dara it wasn't a big thing. And then she come in and she's like, I'm sorry, it's cool. I'm like, feeling a bit like premenstrual and all this. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but it's cool. I'm still not going to let you in right now. And then she's like, come on. And then she gives me a kiss. And she always says this funny thing, right? Like when she kisses me, she knows if I'm closed or open by the texture of my lips.
Have you ever noticed that?
Have you noticed that with your loved ones? A texture of my lips. So she was like, you're doing the kiss. And I'm like,
when his lips are not soft enough, I know how they are when he's soft and open. And that's the one. And it's so amazing because he cannot really control it. It's beautiful for me to notice. So
I will master the control of that one. Right. But anyway, so what's funny is like, she's like giving me the kiss. And actually I wasn't wanting to be so close. So I'm like, no, the kiss is okay, right? Let's kiss again. It's funny old lips. And then what was funny, what was funny, Katerina said, like, yeah, oh my God, yes, the lips. And what was funny, then I said, no, I want to open, right? So, and then we started to kiss, and then I opened and I softened, the lips came back, right? Wherever they'd gone. And then I laid in bed and it was funny. I go, what did I say? You can't
just say, you just can't stay.
I just can't stay in this for long anymore with all these damn practices and all this forgiveness and ho'oponopono. It's like, how can you you can't stay. So at any moment you're going to be like, oh, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you.
So this is really, and this is, I guess,
that's
the crux of it. The crux of it in the power struggle, in that space where we want to be right, where we want to run away, where we want to just I want to be closed. It's like, am I open or am I closed right now? And if I'm closed, what am I doing to open my heart again to love?
Yeah, what am I doing? And even this exercise for you out there, right? Trust me, when the wounded tenderness there or the trigger is there or the resistance is there, just try and open your arms like this. I've found it so hard sometimes. And then do some deep breathing into the heart center, really. And that might sound like, is it really that simple? But really, just breathe into the heart. Sometimes it makes you cry. Because it's like there's such a resistance at that point sometimes to open. And if you just do that and I mean like stay there for like you might not be able to hold your arms up for 5 minutes, but you can definitely open them up, like this, where they're comfortable and relaxed, and just keep breathing into the heart. Just
or lay
breathe.
over a pillow, lay down and lay over a pillow, so your heart really, your space really opens, and you just have to surrender.
So there's a pillow in the back, the top of the back. So you really needed to open the chest, and you can do it exactly. I'm saying stand up. I do everything standing up. I don't know why. I even make love standing up, right? But like, you can do it on the bed. You can lay down. The key is that you're open. Whatever makes you feel open in the body, and then just breathe. Deep breathe. Inhale. Exhale. Just allow it in and out, either nose, mouth. And just notice how that really helps to release the resistance, helps to bring some insight and clarity into what's going on.
Sometimes brings tears.
Sometimes brings tears, maybe laughter.
Or rage.
Rage. It can all sorts of different things can start moving. And it's a really simple somatic exercise that just allows the body to get open. Because you notice as soon as we're closed, we do the whole protective thing, yeah? Shoulders protect the heart, arms cross, knees cross. Everything goes into, as Bruce Lipton calls it, protection. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it goes into closure and protection. And if you don't know Bruce Lipton, we're just free flowing now, right? But like, we're always free flowing. The whole thing's been free flowing. But like, just going into Bruce Lipton, not to digress too much, but his biology of belief and looking at the cell, cloning cells and looking at how cells function in our body. And this being 60, 70 trillion cells, and that no two cells can be in the same place at any one time. So you can't have a cell of protection in a cell of expansion at the same time. They can't be like this together. So what happens is that from that sort of uncovering, he devised that when we're in love, our cells are open. All of our cells are open. And when we're really open to the wonder of life, they're open. And then when we're in closure, we're in fear, we're in anxiety, we're in depression, we're in resentment, we're in separation. Isolating. We're in closure, and then the cells are in closure, right? Every cell of our body.
So it can't repair itself, it can't grow, it can't expand, it can't be creative. All of these things, they shut down in closure. You're just not going to reproduce. Nothing is happening in that
disease comes from closure. Depression, anxiety, ADHD, all these symptoms come out of that being in a closed state. So it's actually healthy for us to really practice, as we share this with our children, in our education, across the world right now, to just practice opening as love. Daily practice opening as love. Not that the others are not allowed in, not that we don't feel our anger, we don't feel all the emotions. As Dara said on another one, all of our emotions are welcomed. Yeah, they're neither right nor wrong, good or bad. They're just energy and motion. Everything's welcomed in love. It's boundless, has no limitations. So it's like when we start to explore that, that's where you start to really the cages, the walls, the barriers start to fall away. And you start to dissolve the identity of who you think you are as the limited small self who's making everything all about itself. So such a, what's the word? Self-righteous, everything's so important, self-importance. All of that starts to drop away and you dissolve into the wholeness of who you are. That's probably it, that 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's it. We hope you enjoyed this one. And yeah.
We're going on our way to our next retreat, Naked the Retreat.
7 days with loads of people.
We have a big group of 30 of one of us coming together to be together, to grow, just to realize that we're already it together, right? And play and share.
Yeah, to get in relationship with each other and realize that we are a whole of mirrors, that we can reflect to each other and that we can learn so much about each other and through each other by just being in a space with each other. So we're really looking forward to that, and we're hoping that you're all feeling amazing wherever you are.
Yeah, wherever you're in the world.
Stay open in your power struggles. Just ask, what would love do now? Ciao.